ready for the flight to mountain meadows. The plane makes a careful approach, ready for the drop.
In 1946, at the very bottom of the world, someone opened a crate and let 25 beavers walk out into the wild. It was supposed to make people rich. The idea was simple and, on paper, kind of brilliant. Release a handful of North American beavers into the wild forests at the southern tip of South America, let them breed, and build a roaring fur industry at the end of the earth. 25 animals, a few wooden crates, a get-rich-quick dream in one of the most remote, untouched wildernesses left on the planet. The dream died almost immediately. The fur business never took off. The people who had the idea moved on, forgot about it, walked away. But the beavers did not walk away. Nobody had thought to ask one simple question before they opened those crates. What happens to 25 beavers in a brand new continent with rich forests and endless rivers and absolutely nothing out there that knows how to hunt them? The answer is unfolding right now, and it is staggering. Those 25 animals have become an army of over 100,000. They have spread across an entire archipelago, crossed the sea onto new land, and they are systematically tearing apart one of the last great wild forests on Earth, a forest that, for reasons nobody saw coming, can never grow back the way it should. And here's the part that makes this story so strange and so important. This is the exact same animal that, in the Northern Hemisphere, we call a hero. The same beaver that rebuilds dying rivers and brings dead valleys back to life. The same gentle, brilliant engineer. Drop it in the right place, and it heals the world. Drop it in the wrong place, and it becomes one of the most destructive invasions in modern history. Stay with me, because this is the dark twin of every feel-good rewilding story, the one that proves that the most dangerous thing in nature might not be an animal at all. It might be a good idea, in the wrong hands, at the wrong end of the world. A dream at the end of the world. To understand how this happened, you have to picture where it happened. Tierra del Fuego, the land of fire, is an archipelago at the absolute southern tip of South America, split between Argentina and Chile. The last scrap of land before the open ocean runs all the way down to Antarctica. It is wild in a way that is hard to describe. Cold, wind-scoured, ringed by gray seas, blanketed in dense, ancient forests of southern beech trees that have grown there, undisturbed, since long before any human set foot on the place. This is the kind of remote, roadless, end-of-the-map wilderness that almost doesn't exist anymore. And in the middle of the 20th century, somebody looked at all that emptiness and saw a business opportunity. The plan came together in 1946. The thinking went like this. Beaver fur was valuable. Canada and the northern United States had built entire economies on it. Tierra del Fuego had endless rivers and forests that looked, on a map, a lot like beaver country. So why not import some beavers, set them loose, let them multiply in all that untouched wilderness, and harvest a fortune in pelts? So they did exactly that. 25 pairs of North American beavers, 50 animals, give or take, were brought all the way from Canada down to the far end of Argentina and released into the wild rivers of Tierra del Fuego, with the dream of seeding a thriving fur trade. It was, in its way, a very optimistic, very human idea. Take a useful animal, put it somewhere new, and let nature print money. What could possibly go wrong? Everything, just not in the way anyone expected. The fur trade flopped. Maybe the pelts weren't good enough. Maybe the place was too remote to run a real industry. Maybe the money just wasn't there. Whatever the reason, the grand plan fizzled out and was abandoned. But the beavers had already been released. They were already out there, in the rivers, free. And nobody came to collect them. Paradise for a beaver. Now, put yourself in the webbed feet of one of those beavers. Back home in Canada, life is hard. Wolves hunt you, bears hunt you, coyotes, lynx, otters, eagles. The northern world is full of things that want to eat a beaver, and it has been for hundreds of thousands of years. A beaver in North America lives its whole life inside a web of predators that keeps its numbers in check, that has shaped it, that it evolved alongside. That balance is ancient, and it is real. Now drop that same beaver into Tierra del Fuego. And look around. There are no wolves here, no bears, none of the predators. The beaver spent its entire evolutionary history learning to fear. The South American forests at the bottom of the world simply never had a large dam-building rodent like this, and so nothing here evolved to hunt one or to keep one in line. For the beaver, Tierra del Fuego wasn't just good habitat. It was paradise, a land of endless food, endless rivers to dam, endless trees to fell, and not one single thing out there hunting it. So the beavers did the only thing a beaver knows how to do when the living is easy. They bred and they spread. And they spread with a speed that should have set off every alarm bell on the continent. From that one release point, the beavers fanned out across the rivers and lakes of the main island. Then they kept going. They crossed onto other islands in the archipelago. They pushed over the border from Argentina into Chile, making this an international problem whether the two countries liked it or not. And then they did something that still stuns the scientists who track them. They crossed saltwater. Beavers reached across stretches of sea and established themselves on the South American mainland, opening up an entire continent's worth of new rivers in front of them. From 25 animals in 1946, the population climbed into the tens of thousands, and then past 100,000. By some estimates, even more. An exponential, unstoppable wave of beavers rolling out across the bottom of South America, and everywhere they went, they got to work. They built. And that, it turns out, is where the catastrophe truly lives. If this kind of true, jaw-dropping story is what you're here for, the strange, the unsettling, the way one small decision can echo for a century, take a second and subscribe. This channel is built on exactly these stories. Nature, and the astonishing, unintended ways we reshape it. The forest that cannot grow back. Here is the thing about a beaver. It is an ecosystem engineer, maybe the most powerful one on Earth, that isn't a human. It dams a stream, slows the water, and floods the land behind the dam, turning a flowing river into a still pond. In North America, that is a gift. We've talked about it on this channel before up north. Beaver ponds create wetlands, store water, support fish and birds and moose, and the northern forests, which evolved right alongside beavers for millions of years, are built to handle it. The trees up there can resprout, regrow, bounce back. The whole system knows this dance. It has done it forever. But the forests of Tierra del Fuego have never ever done this dance. The southern beech trees that make up these ancient forests evolved in a world with no beavers, and they have no defense against one. And here is the crucial, devastating difference. When a beaver floods a stand of these southern trees and kills them, they do not come back. Unlike many northern trees, these beeches largely cannot resprout from a flooded, drowned stump. The forest doesn't bend and recover, it simply dies. So picture what 100,000 beavers do, spreading across a landscape, damming stream after stream after stream. Behind every dam, the water rises, and the ancient forest drowns. The trees go gray, then white, then skeletal, standing dead, bleached, silent. Mile after mile of what used to be living, thousand-year-old forest turned into a flooded graveyard of bare gray trunks. And it stays that way. Where a North American beaver leaves behind a thriving wetland, a Tierra del Fuego beaver leaves behind a dead, drowned ruin that will not heal in any time frame that means anything to us. And you have to actually see one of these drowned forests to understand the scale of it. Stand at the edge of a beaver pond in Tierra del Fuego and look out. Where there should be a dense, dark, living forest of ancient beech trees that took centuries to grow, that stood here long before any human arrived, there is instead a flat sheet of still gray water, and rising out of it, hundreds of bare white trunks, dead trees, bleached like bone, standing exactly where they died, drowned from the roots up. No leaves, no birds, no green. Just a silent, flooded boneyard of a forest, stretching back as far as the dam's water reaches. And then walk upstream, and there's another dam, and another drowned stand, and another, and another. A staircase of dead forests marching up every valley the beavers have found, and they have found, and are still finding, thousands of them. This is not a few damaged patches. This is a transformation you can see from the air, written across an entire region, a slow gray stain spreading through one of the last great wild forests on the planet. Scientists who study this have called it the largest landscape-level transformation of these subantarctic forests in thousands of years. The most dramatic change since the last ice age. Not caused by climate, not by fire, not by logging, caused by a rodent we shipped down there in 1946, chasing a fur fortune that never even materialized. 25 animals, one abandoned business plan. And one of the last great untouched forests on the planet is being chewed and flooded into a skeleton, valley by valley, dam by dam, with no natural force anywhere on that continent able to stop it. The same animal, a different fate. And this is the part I really want you to sit with, because it flips everything. The beaver is not evil. The beaver is not a monster. The beaver in Tierra del Fuego is doing the exact same thing, the precise, identical behavior that makes it a hero 5,000 miles to the north. It is felling trees and building dams and flooding the land, just as its ancestors have done for millions of years, just as the beavers we celebrate for healing dying American rivers do every single day. The animal didn't change. Its instincts didn't change. The only thing that changed was the place. And that one variable place is the entire difference between salvation and catastrophe. That is the lesson hiding inside this whole disaster, and it is a profound one. We love to think of animals as simply good or bad, helpful or harmful, a pest or a treasure. But nature doesn't work like that. A beaver is not good or bad. A beaver is a beaver. Put it where it belongs, inside the web of predators and trees and rivers that it evolved with, and it is one of the greatest healers in the natural world. Rip it out of that web and drop it somewhere new, somewhere with no predators and no defenses, and that same gift becomes a weapon. The damage was never in the animal, it was in the decision to move it. And that decision was made by people who never stopped to ask what would happen if it worked too well. They worried about whether the beavers would survive. It never once occurred to them to worry about what would happen if they thrived. And it goes even deeper than that, because the beavers didn't just drown trees, they rewrote the rules of the whole landscape. When a beaver turns a fast, cold, narrow stream into a wide, still pond, it changes the water itself. How warm it is, how fast it flows, what can live in it. Native fish that evolved for rushing, oxygen-rich mountain streams suddenly find themselves in warm, sluggish ponds they were never built for. The insects change, the plants along the banks change. And in some places, the beaver ponds have even helped other invaders gain a foothold, opening the door a little wider for more non-native species to push in behind them. One animal, moved once, didn't just damage a forest, it reached down into the bones of an entire ecosystem and started turning it into a different kind of place altogether. That is the terrifying reach of a single keystone engineer dropped where it doesn't belong. It doesn't just take something away, it remakes the whole machine in its own image. And everything that evolved to live in the old machine is left with nowhere to go. The war they may not be able to win. So now there's a reckoning, and it is enormous. Argentina and Chile, finally grasping the scale of what was unleashed at the bottom of their continent, have committed to one of the most ambitious eradication efforts ever. Attempted a binational plan to remove the beavers and try to give the drowned forests a chance to begin healing. And when you hear the target, you understand just how staggering this problem has become. The goal is to remove, essentially, all of them. Tens of thousands of beavers, possibly more than 100,000, spread across a vast, wild, roadless, freezing wilderness of islands and mainland, rivers and lakes, much of it almost impossible for humans to even reach. Think about the math for a second. To truly win, you cannot miss. Beavers breed fast, and you have seen what 25 of them did in less than 80 years. Leave behind a few breeding pairs in some hidden valley, and the whole invasion simply regrows. So, an eradication has to be very nearly total, chasing the last animals across one of the most punishing landscapes on Earth, and it has to be done across an international border, by two countries working together for years at enormous cost. It is one of the largest invasive species removal projects ever conceived, and even the people running it know just how hard, how slow, and how uncertain it really is. We are, in the most literal sense, trying to put the genie back in the crate 8 decades after we opened it. And the honest truth is that nobody knows for certain if it can be done. What 25 beavers taught us. Step all the way back, and the story of the Tierra del Fuego beavers is a kind of mirror image of every hopeful rewilding tale ever told. We love the stories where we bring an animal back and the world heals the wolves that mended a river, the beavers that revived a dying valley. And those stories are true, and they matter. But this is their shadow. This is the same impulse, let's move this animal. Let's reshape this land running in reverse, with no brakes, for almost a century. It is the proof that good intentions are not enough, that it'll probably be fine is not a plan. That when you reach into the deep machinery of an ecosystem and start moving the parts around, you had better understand exactly what you're doing, because the natural world does not grade on effort, and it does not forgive a guess. 25 beavers, one optimistic idea, One crate opened in 1946 by people who genuinely thought they were doing something clever. And 100,000 descendants are still out there tonight, in the cold rivers at the bottom of the world, doing the only thing they have ever known how to do, building, flooding, felling, exactly as nature designed them to. They are not the villains of this story, we are. They are just beavers, in the wrong place, paying out the interest on a decision made before almost anyone watching this was born. The Land of Fire is being slowly, patiently rebuilt into something it was never meant to be. And the most unsettling part of all is the simplest one. We did this. Not with malice, not with a weapon. With a good idea, a few crates, and a complete failure to imagine that it might actually work. So, if a single thoughtless release can scar a continent, what happens to a place we hit with the most destructive force we have ever invented? Next time, we travel to a remote ring of islands in the Pacific, where, not so long ago, we detonated dozens of nuclear bombs, vaporizing entire islands, poisoning the sea, and walking away from a place we declared dead forever. What scientists found when they finally went back down beneath the waves decades later is the last thing on Earth anyone expected. So, tell me in the comments, should we even try to remove 100,000 beavers, or have we already lost? I read every single one. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the blast zone.